Good afternoon and welcome to Agri-Food Conversations, brought to you by iSelect Fund, the Van Trump Report, the Yield Lab Institute, and Family Farms Group. My name is Tom Bunn. I'm an associate on the iSelect Fund Ventures team, and I'm excited to welcome you all to our discussion today. As many of you know, Agri-Food Conversations is all about driving innovation in food and ag. Each month, we highlight a specific theme, and this month's theme is inputs and biologics. And on today's call, we are joined by Barrett Ursuch, the CEO of Holganix. At Holganix, plant health and soil health are synonymous. The company's probiotic soil additives harness the power of more than 800 species of soil microbes to increase yield, improve crop resilience against stress, and boost soil health. Over time, building up soil and root health translates to improved crop yield, stronger soil organic matter, and maximize nutrient and water uptake, reducing the need for extra fertilizers and pesticides. Each of you knows companies are more likely to succeed with the right network of customers, talent, investors, and advisors. We've invited you to this call because you are some of the smartest, most talented people in Holganix market. You are potential customers for their products. You've built or sold a company similar to Holganix, or you are just a sophisticated business person or ag professional who understands their market and the challenges and opportunities that Holganix may face. Before we get started, we do have a quick poll question to get a better idea of who we have on the call today. Please take a few seconds to answer. While the poll is running, a few process comments. We are not soliciting investment in any way whatsoever. This presentation is to provide information to help Holganix find customers, mentors, or other strategic relationships that can help them grow their business. Secondly, you are all on mute. However, you can use the chat window to ask a question at any time. Finally, this presentation is being recorded and will be available for replay. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce Barrett Ursuch, the CEO of Holganix. Take it away, Barrett.
All right, well, thank you. So I think, as you kind of frame up the conversation around inputs and biologics, at Holganix, we kind of see those two really being the same conversation. To have a conversation around inputs without also thinking about the microbial, the health of the microbiological diversity in the soil, you're not really maximizing those inputs, and you are likely wasting money and potentially risking leaching some of our inputs into our waterways and volatilizing in the atmosphere and getting tied up into the soil, just not being efficient. So the presentation that I'm going to do today, I'm going to kind of start at the beginning of why biologics and microbes are important for functional soil. And then we'll kind of finish up with how we can use microbes to help drive plant protection, and in addition to crop yield and nutrient efficiency. So with that, we'll get started. I'm Barrett Ursuch. I'm the founder and CEO of Holganix, as you said. And at Holganix, our mission is to revolutionize the way the world grows by leading a microbial revolution in soil health and plant health. So let's take a look at what does healthy soil look like, or the opposite, what does infertile dirt look like? And this picture kind of tells, picture tells 1,000 words. We all know which picture we'd rather have on our farm. What's the difference? You can see that the picture on the left, we see some earthworms in there. We see that rich black dirt. We see thriving plant material. On the right, we've got that hard pan, cracking soil that's virtually void of microbiological life, and it's not functional. It's not healthy. It's going to be hard to grow plants effectively. Now, those are two extremes, and there's a continuum that obviously all acreage is going to be some better soil and some worse soil, and probably none of our farmland is going to be quite as bad as the bad picture, and hopefully we've got plenty that looks like the good picture, but the reality is we're probably seeing a lot in between. We need microbes to build that healthy functional soil. And here's a list of all the microbes that we find in healthy functional soil, starting with bacteria. They're the smallest microbes. They're the most abundant, and they're the smallest in size. So there's most of them, but they're also the smallest in size, all the way down to nematodes. You can have beneficial nematodes as well as parasitic nematodes. But the nematodes are the biggest of the microorganisms that help make up that kind of soil ecosystem, and everything in between, including your fungi, your protozoa, and everything that we have listed there. If we take a look at bacteria, as I said, they're the most abundant, and arguably they're the most important. But bacteria alone are not going to help us have healthy soil. And if you look at different microbial technologies, different biologics out there, a lot of them are going to consist of a single species of bacteria that are that are designed to do a one specific job. Maybe there'll be a handful of species of bacteria and bacillus that, maybe 6 species or 7 or maybe as many as 10. At Holganix, we're different than most biologics and microbial products in that we really focus on building biological diversity. And that's, Tom just kind of covered, our flagship product is called Bio 800. And Bio 800 really refers to our technology around stacking, stabilizing, and concentrating large consortium of microbes. And over 800 species of microbes, bacteria, fungi, amoeba, protozoa. Everything that we showed in that previous slide, we harness in the right ratios in Bio 800 to help drive healthy soil, healthy plants. The result is better yield with less inputs and plants that withstand any kind of stressful condition much, much better. But let's start with the bacteria. And again, they're the most abundant and potentially the most important. And if you read this quote here, the second part of the quote, I'm just going to read that part to you. From man's point of view, bacteria may well be the most valuable of all life forms in the soil. And that's a really critical statement. And a lot of our soils are void of the right bacteria that that need to be present to help build functioning soil. We can also have too many bacteria, not enough of the predator organisms, and we can be out of balance through too much bacteria. So having a microbial solution that only focuses on bacteria may not be the right solution. If you look at when microbes are out of balance, the nutrients, they don't cycle. We may put the fertilizers down, the inputs down, but they don't all get released into the plant. It's estimated that 50%, sometimes as much as 50% of the fertilizers we apply don't get used by the plant. The balance gets leaches into our waterways, volatilizes into our atmosphere, gets tied up in the soil into forms that the plant cannot use. So we need those microbes in a proper ratio, a proper balance in order to have that functional soil so that we can cycle our nutrients. And we mentioned bacteria being a critical player, but fungi is also very, very important. And in the Bio 800, we harness over 200 of those 800 species. There's 200 species of fungi, beneficial fungi that help drive functional, healthy soil. And if you look at this picture, this is a really cool picture because if you look at all that kind of cobwebby, wispy, fuzzy root, looks like fine root mass along the root hairs. What that actually is fungi. It's a mycorrhizae fungi that helps. It basically grows around the roots, and it basically gives the root zone up to 400 times more surface area to be able to go in and access water and nutrients in the soil. So if we can build a healthy mycorrhizal fungi in the soil at really robust numbers in the right spots near the root zone, we're going to do a lot to help that plant access water and nutrients much more efficiently. Also, think about in a hot, dry summer, if we've got this type of a root mass along with that mycorrhizal fungi that's helping that plant access those water nutrients, that plant's going to do so much better in a hot, dry condition than a plant that doesn't have the benefit of all of that mycorrhizae fungi. Here's a kind of a real world example. So this is a golf course, and this is actually considered a disease problem in a golf course. But what you see happening here is it's called fairy ring. And it's that little green ring in that golf course there. And what's actually happening is we've got a concentration or an imbalance in our microbial populations to where the microbes are actually releasing the nitrogen in those very specific areas, but they're not doing it in the rest of the golf course. And so this is a kind of a real world example of where microbes are in there releasing nutrients, making them efficient to the plant. They're doing it in an inconsistent way, so we're getting an undesirable effect for the golf course. But you can see if we could have them balanced throughout the whole course, we'd have a much healthier course. And that's what we do with Bio 800. So we talked about the bacteria, we talked about the mycorrhizal fungi and other fungi. Let's now talk about the larger predatory organisms like protozoa and beneficial nematodes. So remember, I said bacteria are the most abundant. Bacteria are critical. Bacteria happen to love nitrogen. Bacteria are nitrogen hogs. So when we put our nitrogen down into our soils to feed our plants, often what we're doing is we're feeding the bacteria. The bacteria will go in and consume the nitrogen. So that doesn't sound like a good thing because we need that nitrogen to go to the plants, but it actually is a good thing if we have the right ratio of predators that are going to feed on the bacteria. And let me explain what I mean. So the bacteria go in and feed on the nitrogen. They actually hold and sequester the nitrogen right around the root mass of the plant, right where we want the nitrogen to be. So they consume it, hold on to it. And then coming right behind the bacteria, we've got things like the protozoa, the predator microbes come in and consume the bacteria. As they come in and consume the bacteria, they digest the bacteria, but they cannot digest nitrogen. In fact, what they do is they take the nitrogen that's loaded up inside the bacteria, and as they eat the bacteria, they convert that nitrogen into a form that's exactly the type of, exactly the form that the plant needs, right around the root zone of the plant. So the bacteria go in and consume the nitrogen, hold on to it. The protozoa come in, consume the bacteria, and release the nitrogen in a form that the plant can immediately use and uptake right in the root zone. So that's a really important symbiotic relationship that we need to have in healthy soil. And if we don't, we're going to need to use a lot more fertilizer to get the same impact. And if we do, we need a lot less fertilizer to get the same impact. So it's really important that we have the right ratio of not just bacteria, which a lot of microbial products will have, but that we've got the bacteria, the fungi, and things like the predators, the protozoas and the nematodes, all working together in a system approach. And at Holganix, we're really good at stacking, stabilizing, and concentrated this large consortium of microbe to help build healthy soil and healthy plants. Now, we see this happening in the forest. This is a picture of Olympia National Park out on the West Coast. And if you look there, I went and visited that several years ago with my family. And as I looked up, I was amazed at how much biomass was happening really in a total natural environment. There weren't people out there putting down fertilizers and taking care of pesticides, but everything was working exactly how it should. It's Mother Nature at her best. If you were able to scoop up a handful of soil from the forest floor there and look at it under a microscope, it would be teeming with all the right biological, microbiological diversity that we would want to have in our fields, but we don't always have them in our fields because of everything else we're doing to disturb that. In Olympia State Park, we don't have the disruption, so it's Mother Nature doing exactly what she needs to do, and look at this beautiful biomass that she can produce. So we want to do that. We want to recreate that same kind of environment within our agricultural fields and our lawn care and golf courses and any other place we want to grow healthy plants in agriculture. And so we do a lot to feed, to build organic matter and to feed microbes. You think things like no-till and we even put, some guys are out putting down sugars and other things to feed biology in the soil to help preserve organic matter and build organic matter in the soil. But that doesn't really solve all our problems. It's only half of the equation, because a lot of the practices that we do to push modern agriculture really goes against building microbiological diversity. So we're constantly putting wind in the face of microbes through man-made efforts. Things like too much fertilizer will actually lower your microbial populations. Pesticides, things like fungicides, are really bad for microbial health in the soil. Certain herbicides and insecticides and other things that we do, we're constantly disrupting the microbial populations. And Mother Nature does her fair share of disruption as well. Things like heavy freeze and flooding will also disrupt our microbiological diversity. So we can't ever really stop. We've got to do everything we can do to build that microbiological diversity and a healthy microbiome. And then we've got to constantly reapply and reintroduce new healthy microbes, because we're constantly working the other way. So we've got to constantly be putting it back down. And that's where Holganix technology can really help. So adding microbes back to the soil, in addition to good soil practices like no-till, are key in building a healthy soil that keeps working. And microbiological diversity is key. You have to take a system approach. It's not enough to just add bacteria or to just add fungi. We've got to add the whole system. And that's our whole philosophy at Holganix, is build microbiological diversity by building that system approach, by bringing an entire healthy soil microbiome out to that field on a regular basis. Every time before we plant, we want to re-add these microbes. And that's what we're doing with Holganix. Some of the results that we see, this is studies we've done in turf grass. So if you take a look at this study, it's pretty exciting stuff. What we did is we looked at North Carolina State, Penn State, and Purdue. So these three universities, 3 different geographies, 3 different soil types, 3 different turf types. But the results are directionally all the same. So it takes about a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet to create a green, healthy turf with these types of turf varieties that we studied here, which was ryegrass, bluegrass, and fescue. And so in a normal fertilizer situation, it takes 1 pound. When we added the healthy microbiome, the Holganix Bio 800, along with that fertilizer, we're able to reduce the fertilizer rate by 50% at NC State and still see that same kind of green. So we were able to hold on to that green with a lot less synthetic fertilizer. If you look at that picture I showed you on that golf course with the fairy ring, that was sort of what was happening there. It was just in a very concentrated form. So we're able to get that to happen over a broad acreage. And then as you look at Penn State, we actually went down to 75% reduction, and Purdue down to 0.125, so 88% reduction. That 88% reduction is not something we see on a regular basis. That was a dramatic result. But the difference between these results at NC State, we had more of a sandy soil. At Penn State, we had more of a clay, heavy soil. And at Purdue, we had really a beautiful, rich loam soil. And so you can see how the microbial activity has different reactions on different soil types. And that's going to be the case anytime we use them. They're going to vary a lot across acres, but they're always going to help. And we don't see this type of result in row crop, but in turfgrass, we can often get these kinds of results. But we do see nitrogen efficiency in row crop, typically around 20% nitrogen efficiency. So not the 50 to 75% we saw in turfgrass. But in addition to nutrient efficiency, we also see faster establishment. So this is, again, turfgrass study. This is pretty cool because this is Jack Nicklaus's home course over at Murfield Village, just outside of Columbus, Ohio. The superintendent, they were just getting ready to have the President's Cup, a big national PGA event. There's going to be on TV 6 weeks later. And Jack comes in and tells the superintendent to move one of the greens, 60 yards one way or the other. The superintendent's ready to pull his hair out because he's now going to move this entire green, resod it, and have it ready for TV in 6 weeks. Luckily, we had a relationship with this superintendent, and he was able to use our product to help the microbial diversity of Bio 800 to help drive that root mass quickly and efficiently. So if you look at that top corner where it looks like all patchy, that's where he had just resodded that green. And if you look at the lower corner that looks beautiful just before the TV event, it's thick and healthy. And that's because we use those microbes to help drive root mass and get that sod to knit in. And we really saved the day to help them put that on TV that day. So we're really proud of that, of that result and what we did there. You can also see on the same course, we did a study with that superintendent, Paul Laxhaw, where we showed the annuals that he was planting. Osmocote's a traditional fertilizer they use on annual flowers. So he did the Osmocote fertilizer on both flowers, but one we added the microbial technology, Bio 800, and you can see the difference. Much bigger, much more robust, better rooting. That annual is going to do much better once they go to plant it and have a better result. So both had the same fertilizer, but one had the addition of that healthy microbiome that was able to complete the circle of life there and make those nutrients available to those plants, drive that root mass, and have a healthier plant with healthier soil. So not only do we help improve nutrient efficiency, but we can also help build suppressive soils. Suppressive soils are soils that have less disease, less pathogens. And there's several reasons why this is happening. One is just pure displacement. Two things cannot occupy the same space at the same time. So if we have big voids in our soil of microbiological diversity where we don't have a lot of healthy microbiology, we're going to create a void that's going to allow the pathogens to spread much more easily. And the converse is true. If we have a thriving, robust microbiological ecosystem in the soil, then there's not a lot of space for the pathogens, the fungi and the disease organisms, the negative fungi, the pathogenic fungi to spread and cause problems. This is the Pittsburgh Pirates third baseline. And this is pretty cool because if you look at the top picture, that's an active dollar spot disease that's a pathogen that's affecting that problem. Typically, that superintendent who took care of the Pirates field there would spray that with a fungicide about every 7 to 14 days. A fungicide's a bad chemical that would help knock out the disease, the fungus, but it would also knock out a lot of your beneficial biology, kind of creating a negative spiral because as you use fungicides to kill off the bad organisms, you're often having a negative impact on the good organisms as well, creating space for the bad organisms to come back and spread again. So the more you use fungicides, especially in high performance turf, typically the more you need fungicides. You kind of create a dependency on those fungicides. In this particular situation, the third baseman had a hypersensitivity to pesticides, and so they weren't allowed to apply fungicides within so many days of him playing. So they had no choice but to go out and use the Bio 800 solution. We applied this 3 days later, we saw that these two pictures are 3 days apart. Ultimately, we helped him reduce his fungicides and his fertilizers by 50% and dramatically increased his rooting. Again, by using that healthy microbiome, supercharging the soil with good microbes using Bio 800. So we built suppressive soils that had less disease, better roots, better recovery, and stopped that disease organism altogether. Here we are in row crop. You can see this blue line. You can see to the right was standard fertilizer, standard grower practice. To the left, standard grower practice with one additional input, which was Bio 800 at a half a gallon per acre at planting. And you can see the result. We're getting faster establishment, much better rooting. The better rooting leads to a healthier plant altogether. And you can see what's happening here. We're much quicker to an established plant. It's, picture's worth 1,000 words. You can see it. Here's what's happening below the ground. So if you take a look at the right-hand picture, take a look at both these pictures. I'm looking at the corn now. Have the same fertilizer regime, same field, same everything. One has the addition of a Bio 800 microbial technology that's clearly driving significant root mass. I mean, that's massive, more biomass than the one without the Bio 800. That has now turned into a thicker stalk and a better ear of corn. If we take a look at the beans on the left, again, we can see the roots. They're bigger roots. They're denser roots. It's holding on to that soil better. Just think about how well those beans are going to do in any kind of a stressful condition compared to the standard fertilizer practice alone. And think about all the fertilizer that's getting wasted because we don't have the right microbes there to convert those fertilizers into forms that the plants can use. So let's take a look at, what does that mean for bushels per acre? Well, here's a study we did 2 years, 2016, 2017 in north central Illinois. This is third-party research, replicated plots. 11 bushels per acre increase by adding the Bio 800 microbial technology with a single application at planting. That's 2016, 2017. Same field, same program, same everything, different year, different weather. We got a different result, but we still got a 9 bushel per acre increase. So consistently driving yield. Healthier soils are going to give us healthier plants. That should also turn into better yield. Here's another study, a bigger result. This is important to note. Remember that last study we showed we were 200 plus bushel per acre corn in the standard grower practice. We still had an increase, but this is much poorer ground. This is heavy ground, clay soil in western Missouri, and it was a dry year. Again, this is 2 years in a row, replicated plots, third-party research, half a gallon an acre at planting. The result is 21 bushel per acre increase in 17, 10 bushel per acre increase in 18. Same exact everything, different years, different climate, different results, but in both situations, it's a win for the farmer. In all of these situations, we're putting money back in the farmer's pocket. They're spending $9 to $10 an acre for Holganix microbial technology. They're getting anywhere from $30 to $100 an acre in additional yield. In the value of their bushels. So here's the same story in beans. So not as many bushels, but obviously beans are worth a lot more than corn. So the monetary result is similar. Third-party research, replicated plots. Here we saw 3 bushel and 3 bushel, 17 to 18 increase. And everything that we're seeing here, all standard fertilizer practice. The only thing we've changed is adding a half a gallon an acre of Holganix microbial technology at planting. Here we can see the normalized difference with a vegetative index. Look at the green. I mean, it's just pretty clear. Where we see green is where we applied the Bio 800. Where we don't see the green is where we don't have the Bio 800. Now, there's still some healthy ground that didn't have the Bio 800, but there's almost no yellows and reds where we did apply the Bio 800. And what's important to notice is this was a dry year in Kansas. In a dry year, we're going to really shine because we're going to have those roots compared to the standard grower practice where they're not going to have those roots. Winter wheat, we see the same kind of a thing. This is a complicated chart to read, but kind of give you the cliff notes. It was 5,000 cumulative acres over 5 states. So massive replicated plots over 37 locations. And if you look at the bottom, we've got 79% wins with a spring application only, 88% wins with a fall application only. Both of those are half a gallon an acre, and 100% wins when we did a fall and a spring application. So wins means better than the control. And any microbial is going to have variations. These are really, really high win numbers. This is winter wheat, and really exciting data. If you take a look at this is milo. And again, this is going to go to the health of the plant. You know, sometimes that translates into direct yield. Sometimes it translates into the plant's ability to withstand stress. In this situation, they had 60-mile-an-hour plus wind in addition to some hail. And you can see that the milo stand to the left, in the farmer's words, was a mess. It was flattened. It was you know, just not in good shape because of all of the wind and hail damage. If you look to the right, everything is standing straight up. We've got thicker stalks, better roots, better vigor to those plants. Those plants were able to withstand the 60-mile-an-hour winds. They're able to withstand the hail because we had a healthier plant. Why did we have a healthier plant? Because we had a healthy microbiological ecosystem thriving in the soil and around the roots that gave that plant the advantage in that situation where we had those stresses. So we talked about building suppressive soils around disease and fungus organisms. We talked about nutrient efficiency and rooting. We showed you the ability to withstand other stresses like droughts and wind. But we can also help control parasitic nematodes. You know, the chief technology officer at Monsanto was quoted as saying, parasitic nematodes are one of the greatest problems in agriculture today, from how much of a dollar effect it has on crop loss. And parasitic nematodes are a big problem. A lot of times we don't bother treating them because the solution to parasitic nematodes is often, you know, bad chemicals that cost a lot of money that also do a lot of harm to the soil. In some cases we need to use them, but in other cases we just accept the yield drag. But with Holganix, we've discovered within our 800 species, there are 7 species, a consortium of 7 species within the 800 that are really good at fighting parasitic nematodes. We're working on a standalone biological nematicide that would be an EPA registered bionematicide. We're a couple of years away from going through that registration process, but we do have the data, and we've got multiple years of studies. Currently, we have these microbes in our Bio 800, so customers can sort of get some of these benefits. But we think we can get even better with this as we create a specific standalone bionematicide. Let me tell you what you're looking at here. So on the left, that's a picture of a parasitic nematode. We did a study at the University of Illinois, 3-year study, where we showed in a wide variety of nematodes, everything from soybean cyst to corn lesion, tomato root knot. We were able to create 75–80% reduction in a whole classification of parasitic nematodes in a whole bunch of different scenarios, both in the lab and in the field, over broad acres, over multiple years. We identified 3 modes of action on how we're stopping and slowing down these parasitic nematodes from multiplying and thriving, and ultimately driving them down to numbers that don't create the yield loss. If you look at the chart to the right, this was from one of our golf course studies that we did over 5 years with the Broken Sound Club down in Boca Raton. By the way, they just won the Green Star Award, but this golf course did for most sustainable golf course in the country. This 3rd year they won that, and we're one of the key inputs they use to drive that sustainability. But if you look at this chart, so take a look, we've got 3 charts there. We can see sting nematodes, root knot nematodes, and lance nematodes. These are all nematodes that affect golf greens, especially in sandy soils in the South. So Florida, it's a big problem. So you can see here before his counts were 13, 140, and 10. After 1 year of using Bio 800, now they're using it every 6 weeks or so. So a lot of applications. But if you look after a year, we went down to 0, down to 48, and down to 0. We did another course where we went from 21, 148 down to 0, 32, 0. And then the last chart shows 17, 160, 110 in the different classifications, down to 0, 20, and 4. So dramatically reduced the populations of those parasitic nematodes, made them so they were no longer causing turf problems for that superintendent. He did not need to use a very expensive nematicide. He was able to just use our plant health, soil health, microbial technology, and Bio 800 to achieve that result. So healthy microbiome, using biological diversity, using a product like Holganix Bio 800, where we can stack, stabilize, and concentrate large consortium of microbes better than anybody else on the planet, gives us the ability to drive nutrient efficiency, gives us the ability to help protect plants through suppressive soils and through outright by outcompeting the parasitic organisms like the parasitic nematodes. So at Holganix, we're leading a microbial revolution in turfgrass and agriculture. We're really excited about the progress that we've made in agriculture, and frankly, iSelect has been a key player in helping us drive success in agriculture. Both iSelect, Yield Lab, and the Van Trump Report have all been phenomenal partners in helping us drive adoption in agriculture. We started to commercialize our row crop, our technology in row crops in 2019 on about 75,000 acres. That grew to about 130,000 acres in 2020. These are paid acres, paid customers, and a lot of that increase was farmers that just expanded usage on their same ground. So repeat customers that are buying with more acres. And we're looking at 2021 where we think we're going to approach 300,000 acres. And so we're really excited about that. We've been in the turfgrass market for more than 10 years, and we're on about 700 golf courses. About 1,000 lawn care companies all use our technology to help drive soil health, plant health, and achieve results of sustainable plants, sustainable programs, reducing inputs, driving health and resiliency of their plants. So with that, I think we have time for questions, Tom. I'm here to answer questions if anybody has them.
Fantastic, Barrett. Thank you so much for joining us today. So to the audience here, the best way to ask a question is to raise your hand and I can unmute you. However, you can also go to the Q&A pane. If you go down to the bottom of your Zoom view, your Zoom screen, you'll see a Q&A, and you can ask a question there as well. So while you're thinking of that, Barrett, I guess one question I have is how can the audience help you? You mentioned all the varying groups that are a part of this, Van Trump, Yield Lab, Family Farms, iSelect. We have a huge distribution of these videos. To all those listening, what's the best way that the folks listening can help out Holganix?
Yeah, thanks so much, Tom, for asking that. I mean, I'll tell you, anything we can. So our go-to-market strategy, one of our go-to-market strategies for agriculture, has been to build a network of farmer dealers. So we're looking for entrepreneurial farmers. This is a farmer who, is probably a producer on his own ground that he owns, but he also has some other business line on his farm or would like to have another business line on the farm. So a lot of times these guys might have a seed dealership. Maybe they're have a commercial spray business as part of their farm. We found these farmers are really good if we can help them become a expert in our technology locally, be a local testimonial farm for us locally by using our product. We then help them become a dealer for our product. They make margin by giving their community and their neighbors and people in their network access to our technology by both distributing it from their farm as well as by being a local testimonial, local expert, and helping us be that kind of sales agent in that market, a demonstration and sales and distribution agent. So we've got about 30 of those farmer dealers currently active, and we're looking to add another 20 in the near term. So if anybody knows of that type of a farmer dealer who's looking to make extra money for their farm, we had guys last year, and last year was only second year doing it. Every year their year 2 farmers are more successful than our year 1 farmers, and it looks like our year 3 farmers are going to be more successful than our year 2 as they get more experience. But Tom, last year we had guys make $5,000 as a incremental side business, putting money in their pocket. We had guys make over 100,000, or I'm sorry, this year we think we'll have guys make over 100,000. Last year we had guys make 60,000. So it can be a meaningful business to add to the farm, and it's a part-time thing that they need to do in the wintertime. Host a few grower meetings, meet with some of their community, educate them on the technology, and we can help them, basically access that community, and then we just need them to warehouse our material so that their customers can get it during the growing season. Once the planting season's done, their job's more or less done until the following year. So it's a real part-time gig but we're excited about that because it gives us that local expert. It gives us a local testimonial, and it helps drive adoption. And we're putting money back in the farmer's pocket by giving them a business line to put on the farm. So if anybody knows of that type of an entrepreneurial farmer, if there is one on this call, or if they know of one, we would love to talk to them. We're looking for that type of a dealer. And certainly we're also looking for growers who are looking to be adopters of new technology, growers who really care about soil health. Our product helps them with yield the first year they use it. but the more they use it, the better the soil gets. So any growers that want to drive yield, build sustainability, build healthy soil, we want to talk to them, and we want to help them understand how they can use our product to do so. So I think that would be two really key ways that maybe some of this group can help us. We're also interested in talking to agronomists, and if there's the right ag retail partner that's really interested in driving new technologies, we'd like to talk to them as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Barrett. Looks like Robin V has a question. Robin has their hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Robin, go ahead. I think you're off mute.
Sweet. Hi, my name's Robin. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So I work at a vertical hydroponic greenhouse in Jackson, Wyoming. I was just wondering if you've seen any applications of this in the kind of indoor ag setting, with if it's improving root health, or if there's been any kind of trials with that.
Yeah, we do have quite a few customers in the indoor grow space, hydroponic, growing leafy greens and that type of thing, as well as in the cannabis space, where we've helped growers in both situations. Right here locally, there's a pretty cool organization called Second Chances Farms, where they've taken a massive warehouse facility right here in Delaware. We're just outside of Delaware, and they're giving prisoners who are rehabilitated and just entering, kind of just getting out of prison and looking to enter the workspace, and they're giving them basically almost a sharecropping kind of a business model within this big warehouse, where they're doing all hydroponic growing of leafy greens and other produce, and then distributing it to local restaurants and that type of thing. And I just mentioned that because it's a really neat business model, something that might be interesting to look at, just because you're in that space. But they've also been a great partner of ours, and we've done a lot of work with them in the indoor grow environment. So we'd love to help you there, and you've got my email here on this presentation. If you want to talk more, certainly email me and we'll set up a one-on-one.
Great, thanks.
Great, thanks for that, Robin. Looks like an anonymous attendee asks via the Q&A chat window, Barrett, any testing done on alfalfa?
Yeah, we do have some alfalfa studies. Dave Stark ran those studies and knows them intimately. I know them at a high level, but we do have a lot of positive impact on alfalfa. If you're growing alfalfa, we'd love to talk to you. So again, email either one of us, and I can take you through the study, or Dave can take you through it in detail.
Terrific. And JJR asks, any benefit to foliar versus in-furrow Bio 800 application to row crops?
Yeah, we get about half of our customers apply it in furrow. At time of seeding, they usually put it in with a starter fert, and about half of our customers do it over the top as a foliar application. So both work, and both seem to work about the same. My logic tells me that the in furrow should work better because it's more targeted, but the results don't say that. So we can do certainly foliar, we can do in furrow. The key is we want to get it for row crop. We want to get it as close to planting as practical. So it's okay if we have to do it like with a post-emergent, just after emergence, a post-emergent herbicide. We can mix right in with a post-emergent herbicide just after emergence. But we don't want to get knee high at that. If we're talking about corn, at that point it's too late to have a big impact. So just as long as we can get it real close to the time of planting, then it'll work fine as a foliar.
Great. Dilip Shah, apologies if I mangled that pronunciation, asks, are there any production issues associated with producing Bio 800 with consistent quality and performance? Second question, what is the relative proportion of bacteria, fungi, and protozoa in Bio 800 formulation?
Yeah, so great question. Very appropriate question, and one that I didn't cover in the presentation and probably should have. So one of the things that we do, and we're really proud of at Holganix, we're really good at building that a very consistent, very concentrated consortium of microbes. That's kind of our that's our secret sauce. And one of the ways that we QC that to prove that we do that every time over and over. First of all, we batch produce. So each time we make a batch, we start from zero and it's a new batch. It's not a continuous process. And then each batch gets DNA fingerprinted. So we can DNA fingerprint it and tell you exactly what's in there. every species. And so every batch gets a DNA fingerprint and a report, and we keep very tight QC on that. And so from doing this over 10, 11 years, we've gotten very good at having very little variation within the bacteria fungi protozoa ratio. And so, you know, when you, that's one of the things that really sets us apart, I think, is our consistency. So, you know, we'd love to share that with you. If you wanted to dive in deeper, we could show you the real specific DNA fingerprint and really dive into the very specific species. At a very high level, you know, we're about 60% bacteria and about 30% fungi and the balance being the predators.
Great. Thank you. Ron asks, if we apply manure, does this decrease the effect? I've heard people state this.
Actually, the opposite. So manure is really, when you use manure in conjunction with the right microbes, the microbes actually help turn that manure into a more efficient food source. You know, manure is good because it's organic and it has nutrients in it and it builds organic matter. But manures, you know, they have a challenge because they're pretty soluble and they don't always stay where you put them. So if we can use our product in conjunction with manures, we're going to allow a lot more of that nutrient to be available to the plant. In fact, one of our products that we have in the golf industry, and I didn't spend a lot of time talking about this product because, you know, this call was more ag oriented, but in the golf industry, we actually have a dehydrated poultry litter pellet that we coat with a microbial formulation. And the result is we get about twice the, so in other words, let me put it another way. When we use that poultry pellet by itself, we need to put 50 pounds down on 4,000 square feet to get a result. And when we combine it with the microbes, 50 pounds goes 8,000 square feet to get the same result. So we get a much more efficient release of that nutrient, of that manure. Same would be true with really any kind of manure. So I think it would be a synergistic impact, and my field experience tells me the same.
Great. Sterling Y asks, does Site One market your product?
Site One does not market our product. Site One's largest competitor is Ewing. So Ewing is the #2 supply house to the lawn care, landscape, golf industry. Ewing Irrigation and Turf Supply. They've got about 220 locations across the country. So Ewing is a partner of ours, and we're in most Ewing locations, but not in Site One at all.
Great. Well, I think that does it for questions. So Barrett, thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations on all your progress. It sounds like 2021 is going to be huge for you. I'd also like to thank the audience for your active participation. And again, if you know somebody for whom the offer about the entrepreneurial farming opportunity to partner with Holganix, please do let them know. Also, again, as many of you do know, we host these calls every Thursday at 3 p.m. Central. Again, the rest of January, we're talking inputs and biologics. Next month's theme is TBD at the moment, but we will let you all know as soon as possible. And you can register for these.
Soil carbon time.
Soil carbon, that's right. Yeah. So February, we'll be talking soil carbon with, I'm sure, some great entrepreneurs. So you can register for upcoming agri-food conversations by going to agrifoodconversations.com. And if you know someone that would like to watch this webinar, know of any entrepreneurial farmers, feel free to share it with them. A replay of this webinar will be emailed to you in the next 24 hours. So you can forward that along, or they can just go to agrifoodconversations.com to view it. So Barrett, thanks again. Everyone in attendance, thank you. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks for the opportunity, Tom.